You are tripping with the Engles. This is our last episode of our genealogy road trip. In our previous episodes, we followed our family history from the 1730s and 40s, starting in Pennsylvania, and then traveled to Shenandoah Junction in West Virginia. And now we are wrapping it up with visits to Tennessee and Kentucky. Join us.
Well, I'm in Tennessee, just outside of Elizabethton, and behind me is the Rowan Creek, and a little bit down the road is Boone Branch. Those flow into the Watauga River. So this area around here is part of the 450 acres that George Engel got in a land patent, purchased from the state of North Carolina back in 1792. And so you can see still a working farm behind me. We're pretty well out in the country, quite a fair amount, a little bit farther away from Elizabethton than what I expected. But the patent includes one corner of the property that is along Rowan Creek, in the corner of Boone Branch, which is maybe a few hundred yards behind me. So we're really close here, where George Engel has bought some property. He bought 2 or 3 parcels of property. He actually sold this parcel, or at least a portion of it, to his oldest son, Peter. And then Peter sold it back to his father, George, and moved on to Barberville, Kentucky. And about within a year after that, George resold the property and moved to Kentucky as well. So we are on our genealogy trail. We're looking at, this is where Jacob, my 3rd great grandfather, was born, and then he grew up primarily in Kentucky. So we've made it this far. It's quite a chilly day, but sunny, as you can see. And fortunately, it's a very clear day, because there are some forest fires that are relatively somewhat close. And we are, again, we're on our history trail and tripping with the Engles.
One of the nice things about traveling in an RV is that we have time to do some exploring, such as our side trip here to Cumberland Falls in Kentucky.
We are at Ingle Hollow Road just outside of Barberville, Kentucky. And at this location, there was the historic pioneer school of Engel, the Engel School. It no longer exists, but according to the Barberville records, it was right behind me. And also in this general area here, and I'll swing around a little bit. Between here and the area over to the right behind me here, there's Indian Creek, which flows into the Cumberland River. And George Engel, actually Peter Engel, initially came out to Kentucky, while George, his father, was still in Tennessee. And George followed Peter out here to this location. So George is my 4th great grandfather, and his oldest son is Peter. Peter became fairly influential in Barberville. He was a judge, justice of the peace, served 2 or 3 times there, a number of other official positions, owned a number of properties, had a tavern, so a number of businesses, and owned a lot of different properties in downtown Barberville. So that'll be one of our locations that we'll kind of check out. One of George's other sons, Jacob, is my 3rd great grandfather. Jacob owned about 500 acres in and around Indian Creek, so this general area over here. George and Peter both own probably in excess of 500 acres all generally along the Indian Creek, which is kind of behind me. So it is we're standing in the general area that my third and fourth grandfathers lived here. This is kind of neat because what we've done is we followed the genealogy and family history almost 100 years, actually over 100 years, from 1730, 1740, when Melchior Engel and before that his father-in-law made it to Philadelphia and then to Lancaster. So Lancaster was the first location that we went to. Next, Melchior Engel moved to Shenandoah Junction, which we visited. And then his son, George, moved to Tennessee, which we visited the location there in Tennessee. And then George and his family moved to Barberville, Kentucky. And that took us, and then Jacob lived his entire life, my third great grandfather, here in Kentucky. So that takes us a full 100 years from 1730 until the 1830, 1840 time frame, or a little bit later than that. So this gives us the first 100 years of my family in America, and we've hit not only the locations where the Engles lived, my surname, but also some of the families that married into the Engles side. So it's been a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up this part of the family history with this here, and thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed it, because we tried to share some of the things that we've went through in making this family history, giving it the story for the family history. Happy trails!